Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Michael Bruce, CMO at Agent Moves, and welcome to our Good to Great series. We're all about sharing amazing stories of top realtors and how they got there. And we want to help other realtors become great. So let's jump right in with our guest today, Chris Stevens. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time. We like to start with something a little bit interesting outside of the real estate business. And I know we spoke for a couple of minutes, and you're 20 years in the restaurant business and then transitioned to real estate. Tell me about the restaurant business. I loved it. I mean, as a kid, I was a waiter trying to make money in college. I'd work at the hotels upstate New York, and that was that service business. And boy, did you learn a lot as a kid, waiting on those kind of people. But tell me about your journey in restaurant and then over to real estate.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for having me. What I'll tell you is the restaurant business has definitely helped me, along with my path in becoming a realtor, an entrepreneur, and business person. I started off very early as illegally as a busboy. My brother was a bartender in the same restaurant, and I think I was like 13 years old, cash, under the table, and I'd watch everyone cooking. Even as a little kid, I always liked to cook, and from there, I went to be a busboy, and then I ended up in the same kitchen that I was a dishwasher in. And then, I guess they say the rest is history, but I ended up going to the Culinary Institute of America in New York, and then worked under some amazing chefs and restaurateurs. And from there, opened up a few of my own restaurants, and then um, just decided that, 20 years and 60, 70, 80 hours a week kind of took its toll. I think it was time for me to do something else. And I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis, but maybe I would. I had to figure it out, like what's next for me. And real estate for me was appetizing just from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Owning real estate, I was always curious about that. And the sales part of it, I figured I'd be really good because I was very good at relationship building. And it was kind of a no brainer for me. Also scary at the same time.
Right. So, yeah. So tell me, so how do you jump in? Are you now, 20 years, obviously, running some of these? You had a business, you had, I take it some money in the bank, and now you decide to jump in. How do you jump in? How does this happen? Did you meet someone? Did you work? Did you join a team? To tell us a little bit of how you got started.
Yeah. So, I decided to get my license, obviously. And first thing was take the classes, pass the classes, take the state and national test, pass that, and then decided, which brokerage am I going to partner with? And that in itself, you know, can be daunting because there's so many brokerages out there. And at that time, a lot of my friends were with Remax. And I didn't even shop around. I literally just went to Remax. And the two guys that owned the brokerage and still do were great guys. So, and as I was studying to take my test, I would go there and just learn from them. Obviously I couldn't transact anything, but I was just a sponge and trying to learn as much as I could. And when I actually passed the test and I joined that Remax brokerage, I just went under one of the owner's wings and just wanted to learn as much as I could and kind of hit the pavement running. That was kind of, I knew I had to fast track because I wasn't 23 or 24, and time I felt like wasn't on my side. This is my second career, and I wanted to get from point A to point B as fast as possible, and in a hurry, if you will. And that's how I jump started my career and just in real estate, and was kind of just hitting the pavement, developing relationships, and kind of figure out, well, the best way to get from point A to point B, and really just being around people that were a lot smarter than I was. That just made sense to me.
Right. Right. No, no, no. Great. Great introduction. And then as you see now, right, and I can see the difference, right? It's one thing when you're 20 starting, by the time then you get to your 40s, boy, you have some database sphere of influence, right? And we know in this industry, it's a huge part, done properly, right? A huge part of your business comes from your sphere, past clients. So now you're building that. You don't have that at 40 something years old, right? As you're getting started in this, right? So Tell us a little bit about those that first year or two, the types of leads. What were you working on? How did you kind of jump in and start to build your own business?
It's funny enough, you hear different things from different people on strategies of lead generation, for example, which for any agent is really the most important thing. Your sphere and how do you get leads. Some people have their names on shopping carts in supermarkets. Some people do radio. Some people do postcards. Some people do Zillow or Realtor.com leads, right? And back then, Zillow leads were a lot more accessible and affordable than they were now. It's different now than, back then. And kind of figure out, do I want to be a luxury agent? Do I want to do basically anything from, 150,000 to over a million? And I think you have to get very clear on, where you want to prospect and where you want to be. Locality makes the most sense. So you kind of fish in the pond that you're familiar with. So where you live, the restaurants that and the people that in those areas just made sense to me. And certainly, you take your database of people that I have, which are from all over the place, right? I don't want to transact real estate in a town or in a city that I'm not familiar with, right? Because
Mhm.
that I'm going to be doing a disservice to that potential client. So my advice for any newer agents or agents in general is kind of fish in the pond that you're familiar with and stick to that one thing, and then go outward from there, and then familiarize yourself with other areas that maybe you want to be in. If you're in an area that is blue collar and you want to get into the luxury market, then go into a luxury market that you feel you could tap into and you could familiarize yourself with. That's kind of closer to where you live. Um, and I think that's really good advice for any agent that wants to build out their business if they're just starting out.
No, great advice. Great advice. And, again, since we're really talking about like experienced agents, so then you get a couple of years in, right? And you have, through the relationships you have and your personality and so forth, right? Business, it's working, right? You see what
Hmm.
the opportunity is. Tell me a little bit about challenges like getting things to the next level, like after the first, not the early challenges, right? Everyone knows, what you're facing that early time, but now you're 5 years in, whatever, you got a, good sphere, you have some past customers. Tell me some challenges and how you're overcoming them. And then we'll talk about even growth further.
Yeah, that's a great question because if you're a single agent, and let's just assume you're not on a team because being on a team is different than being a single agent. If you're a single agent and you've been in business, let's just say for 4 years, hopefully, you're doing more business than you did the year prior. It's kind of like, what's next for me? And do I start a team? Maybe you have an admin or you have a transaction coordinator, right, to help leverage your business. And it always comes down to, where do I want to be? We're going into 2025. So if you've been in business for 4 years, let's say, and you kind of say to yourself, what's next for me? If it's okay, well, I want to bring on a buyer's agent or I want to bring on another agent and form a team. There's a way to do that, right? You know, uh, and it's a team name, it's forming an LLC, for yourself, for that team. And what's your value proposition? Because your value proposition, maybe that you have right now, is you. But once you start bringing people into your world, they want your value proposition. And what is that? Are you providing leads? Are you providing transaction management? Are you providing marketing? Right? Are you providing coaching? Right? Because part of their commission is going to you, right?
Hmm.
And if that's happening, then what's the leverage for them or what's the value proposition for them such that they don't leave your team? And that's for team leaders, we call them, or rainmakers or agents that own teams. The one thing that I see a lot is teams sometimes lose sight of what their value proposition is, and agents start leaving that team just because their world isn't big enough. That team leader's team is not, the world is not big enough for them to stay inside, and they start going outside of it. So you just have to figure out like what's next for you. And some agents are happy just being independent single agents doing their volume, right? Everyone has a different path. Like my path was being an agent, a successful agent, but I knew from the very beginning I wanted to be a brokerage owner. I'm an entrepreneur. My path was way different probably than a lot of agents. I wanted to get the real estate experience under my belt, but ultimately I'm a business owner and I like building things. And I've built out a lot of businesses along with my partners, and it's been a great ride. It's been a great ride.
Totally fabulous. Yeah, I love the advice as well, as people do look at this differently, right? Look at the business and it's fair. Hey, maybe I want to be a solo agent and I'm thrilled with, whatever it is, 30 homes a year I sell and I have great income, my family's happy. It's a lifestyle approach, right,
Correct.
to living versus I want to really build a business and, generational wealth through real estate, all the other things we know we can do. It's so individual,
It
for each person.
It is, Michael. And one other thing I'll tell you is you kind of have to figure out. I teach a Path of Money class, and one of the things that I tell agents is there's two things. If you draw a straight line across and you have 1 to 10, and you draw another line underneath of it, 1 to 10, one on the top is profitability, and one on the bottom is noise or decibels. And what I mean by that is if you're a single agent and you want to start a team, profit wise, does it make sense for you on a scale? If you want to be a 10 in profit, probably going to be on a 9 or 10 with noise in your life, which means you're not going to have as much time as maybe as you had before because you have more people in your coming into your world that you're responsible for. And if you want to be a single agent and stay a single agent and you want to spend more time with your family and you want that lifestyle, then that's what you should do. It's a good barometer because as you get older, like for me, whenever there's an investment opportunity or whatever it is, I don't want it. I don't want a 10 for the. I mean, I would like a 10 on a profitability and a 1 or a 2 on noise, but typically that's not how it works. I don't want passive income into my life where basically I don't have to really work for it, like be there and work for it. I want to be able to invest in something and maybe be a 4 or 5 on noise. And then I'm fine with a 4 or 5 on profitability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, very much so. And I think it's great advice. I can see why it would be I mean, in a, 90 seconds, you kind of gave a snapshot of a training program that you do, but I can see where it's coming from and
Yeah.
how to think about this strategically in what and I can already, I mean, I think I told you I've interviewed, I don't know, coming close to 20 agents for this series. And, so I'm hearing different stories. I'm hearing different things of, oh yeah, I'm moving into be a director of growth, so for this market center. But the thought process of keeping your own and growing your own brand and business while that's happening, there's a bit of a disconnect, I think, with some people not sure between, and I think the noise and profit is a great way to look at it, right? If you have this lifestyle approach, you know what the noise, how that's going to affect it versus the income.
And also I think as a caveat to that is if you're starting a business, you're gonna have a 10 on noise because you got to build it, right? So initially, as an agent, if you're just getting your license, you're going to be probably a 0 or a 1 in profitability, and you're going to be a 10 on noise, right? But as you stack that, over time, that needle moves, and hopefully you're getting more profitable and then you figure out leverage, right? And once you can figure out leverage and you can do it the right way, the noise level goes down and hopefully the profitability stays up. And I think that's kind of the secret sauce to being an entrepreneur, a really good successful agent is kind of figuring that out.
Yeah, yeah, no, excellent, excellent point. Talk about the leverage for again, a good realtor. You're, in the business, 7, 10 years, right? Working in their database, right? What should they be doing? What do you see happening? The challenges typical agents face, so people don't feel alone. Like, I'm speaking to someone later today. They talked about how, I want to be big like in social media, but I
Mm-hmm.
know once and I want to do that video post every week. But as soon as I get busy, I get away from it. And like, I'm going to try and commit to it in 2025. But like, I see the intention without the real plan.
Oh man, you're hitting a hot spot because the one word that comes to mind and the one thing that, you know, a lot of realtors don't have is discipline. and the discipline to lead generate every day, because that funnel that you should have of leads is only full to the extent that you actually lead generate consistently. That lead generation is just one. The other part, social media part of it, again, same thing. Do you have the discipline to do one video, a short video every single day about your brand, about who you are? And I'm not talking about, oh, look at me, I just got a listing and here you go, right? People don't care about that. They want to hear about you and who you are, about your family, if you have a family, your dog, whatever it is. It's got to be personalized, right? the the discipline to be able to wake up every day and be regimented to time block the actual things that you should be doing, which number one is lead generation, obviously, but also contacting your database. You want to be top of mind to your database, even if it's people that you've done business with, you've closed deals with that maybe 3 4 years ago. You need to be in touch with them, making sure that you're top of mind, because you want referrals, and you want to know that on average, the buyers that buy, they're going to sell 5 to 7 years later, and they want to make sure that they're using you as their realtor. And that will only happen is if you're in a relationship with them and you're keeping in touch with them and you provide value into their life. And that goes for any business.
Yeah. No, you're totally spot on. And doing that, it's the disconnect of, realtors needing to be marketers.
Correct.
Right. And you don't know that when you get into it, right? You get into this business, I'm going to say 90% of what I'm hearing is I love helping people. Whatever led them ultimately to real estate, they were doing something where they were helping people. And that was kind of their DNA. And then when they fell into being an agent, but they realized I'm really helping people with the most expensive transaction of their life, and took to loving that again. The ones that have been really successful. It's that, like you're saying, right? It's the discipline, which is very, very difficult, especially, you break into this now and you start making some good money and you have that sphere, but what you don't realize is what you're leaving on the table, how much bigger it can be if you put the discipline to that nurturing, to activating your database, right? It's amazing as I look at, I don't know, I think the number's about, it's like 6.5% of your database transacts every year based on how many people move, right? But it's only, and some of the stats in the industry are incredible. Like 80% of sellers don't use the same realtor that they did that sold in the house because they don't remember them. They don't remember their name, right? Because they haven't stayed in touch,
Exactly right.
right, to the point. Or it's like almost 80%, I think, only see one agent and give them the listing. So again, just shows you that importance in this industry of what you leave on the table. I hear agents talking about how they see a sign on the front lawn of a house they sold 5 6 years ago and so upset. How could that person not have contacted me? No, you weren't in touch with them.
You're spot on. It's like when someone does an open house, and this is a pet peeve with me, is that open houses are such an opportunity, because number one, if you're doing an open house that you have the listing on, that's one. But the potential to get buyers from that as well is just unbelievable if you do it right, you know? And there's just a lot of realtors that I've seen that don't leverage an open house. I'm just using an open house as an example, the right way. They don't leverage it enough to get as much out of that open house as they could, right? I mean, it's how I built a lot of my business, is just going through a lot of open houses and doing them and getting good at it.
Yeah, yeah,
The other thing I want to tell you real quick too is realtors need to figure out, you can only be good at 1 to 2 or maybe 3 things, like really good, right? History tells us that you can't multitask and do 5 or 6 or 7 things really good. Is figure out what those 1 2 or 3 things are, triple down on them, and then leverage out the rest of it, right? For me, I'll give you an example. I hate paperwork. I just don't like paperwork, and for me, it's just hiring an admin or hiring a part-time admin if you're starting out, and if you can afford it, and have that person do the paperwork for you. And if your kryptonite is going out and getting business, then go out and triple down on that. Bring the business in, pay someone $20 or $25 an hour to do the paperwork. It just makes sense.
yeah. Absolutely. Great advice. Great advice. Now, Chris, there was some really great stuff here. I think again, agents that are looking to take their business to the next level are going to really get off on, hearing you talk and how what you've done. And of course, anyone catching this, please follow Chris. Like us, subscribe to our YouTube channel would be great. But I think you got some great nuggets here from, the agents looking to take it to the next level. If you're looking for the lifestyle business, like you said, you're happy with those 30, 40 transactions, awesome. You're feeding your family, life is good, but you're looking to go to that next place, listen to Chris. I think you have some great advice on how to think about it. And again, like to be strategic, not just let these things happen. So really appreciate the time, Chris.
Thanks, Michael. It was great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Speak soon.